Welcome to Real Herbalism Radio, show 299 at Big Dog Studios in Eugene, Oregon. Today's show is brought to you by Ace High Graphics. We print custom t-shirts, hats, hoodies, bags, and more using a low-impact, heat-infused printing process you can trust. Get a quote today at acehighgraphics.com. Now here are your hosts.
I'm Candace Hunter.
I'm Patrick Hunter.
And welcome to Real Herbalism Radio. Patrick, I always love talking to Erika.
Oh yeah, she's great. She was good at the Herbal
Herbs in Action
Summit. She was a really valuable member of that whole cadre of people we had, and she was just fun to talk to in general about essential oils and smelling and
oh yeah, and her excitement about them or her passion for them is like infectious in the good way.
Yeah, it's almost like she'll tell you she's an herbalist, but really she's all about the essential oils. That's her jam.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
Her niche, as we say in the marketing world.
And the hydrosols. Yeah. She, in fact, when we were talking about, the science, if you will, behind how scent works and how primal that sense is, it reminded me of when Buttercup passed on. She and I, for all
that you don't know, Buttercup was our second basset hound. She was a great
She was my best friend. Not Jasper. Jasper is our current sweetheart. My current best friend.
Right. So anyway.
But before him there was Buttercup and Sweet Pea. And Sweet Pea was my first basset hound, and he and I were very, very close. And he and I had a lot of conversations about smell, especially early on, because he wanted to smell everything all the time. It was challenging. Try to go on a walk. You take one step and then you spend 10 minutes waiting for him to smell and take one more step and same.
Yes, very much sense.
But what I noticed is that I didn't notice it at the time, but what I noticed after Buttercup passed on, she was our second basset hound and they overlapped each other.
Yep.
So what I noticed after she passed on was that the basset hound sense of smell somehow infected me, and I started smelling things more clearly and more, like I could pick apart aromas easier. And after she passed on, part of the grief that happened for me was I lost a little bit of that sense of smell. It wasn't like I couldn't smell. It's not like, COVID or head injury level or anything. But I noticed that after she was gone, my sense of ability to smell and pick apart smells and catch even the faintest whiff had vanished or had diminished significantly. So I was just smelling like a regular old human again. And it was really disappointing. Mm-hmm. It really, the world sort of flattened as a result, which I found interesting. And it was just something that I just sort of that's a decade ago. And I observed that this was the case. But what do you do, Mm-hmm. Jasper's not nearly the same scent-driven dog that a basset hound's are.
Yeah, he's much more sight.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. They would just pick up on scents, and and on the other side of the thing, basset hounds typically smell more themselves. They smell.
they are.
They're a hound, yes. And they have their own sense. When you're around them, they are odoriferous dogs. Yes, any of the hound family is.
Yes.
So not only do they smell really well, but they also smell really well.
Yeah, and there's something about, for me, basset hound scent in particular, the smell of those dogs is wonderful. I find that to be a lush, luxurious, beautiful scent.
Oh, I'm sure there are people going right now.
Everybody around me doesn't agree. In fact, I remember when we lived with basset hounds, we got comments regularly through the years from certain relatives about the smell of our house and the smell of our couches and the smell of our car. And our dogs didn't even sit on the couch. It wasn't until Sweet Pea passed on that Buttercup ventured to get on the couch.
She broke all the rules.
She did break all the rules.
She was such a misbehaved dog. She broke all the rules.
Oh, but she was so sweet and darling.
Well, yes, she was. But again,
you could never be mad at Buttercup.
Yes, she was the one that pushed the couch, and we didn't push it back. So okay.
No, we didn't.
But yeah, and I remember. Our truck at the time, you could definitely tell we had dogs. Mm-hmm. Jasper in our car now, you can't tell that.
It's not as obvious.
Yeah, there's a dog in the car, because there's dog hair, and there's a slight smell. But the basset hounds, they just had a smell.
They were strong.
Right. We had two of them, so that double your pleasure smell.
Yeah.
But, it comes with it. She was talking about how those scents really, and scents and smells really just, it's such a powerful sense that we have. And it encompasses everything.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting how, like she was talking about the mental illness and how some people will have like certain smells, you're smelling a rose, but they're smelling rotten eggs. Or, I found that really fascinating that the wiring or connections would be that different. I know it's all.
As you were even saying that, we're like, there's people that can be colorblind.
Yeah.
Right? Because they don't have the cones or whatever. They can only see certain things.
Yeah. In fact, we know somebody like that.
But I'm wondering, is there a sense blindness? Like a sense that, they don't have the same olfactory things in their nasal passages or whatever that would let them allow them to facilitate them to smell? Like
from infancy, they've always been that way, as opposed to people who are suffering from a head injury or COVID or something.
Right. Where you've lost your sense of smell.
Right.
And you do get it back. Hopefully.
Yeah.
But like you were born and these scents on these registers smell like
something else.
Sulfur or whatever.
Yeah.
And then no matter what you do in your whole life, that every time you smell a rose, it always smells this. Because you don't, I would venture to guess there are things like that. Why wouldn't it be? If you become colorblind because of that, because that's the way you were born, why wouldn't there be?
Yeah.
This block on certain scents that your body just doesn't identify or identifies completely different.
Your brain files differently. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Connects differently.
Even when you talk to somebody about colors, and then they don't have to necessarily be colorblind.
Yeah.
I've had people when I've given them a design proof, they're like, I really don't like that blue. I'm like, really? That's straight off of this is something you really loved. And it's a really dark blue. And they'll tell me, well, no, that's purple. I'm like, oh, no, that's blue. And and here I can show you that this is the mix we're using, and that's a blue mix. But And so they keep seeing a dark purple, and that's how they see it. They're not colorblind. They're just not.
It's the way that they perceive it.
Yeah, they're just not. Their perception of that blue isn't along the lines of mine.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. Side note: I just found out apparently that the developer of Crayola crayons was colorblind. But I don't know how that worked.
Oh, that's interesting.
I don't know how that worked, but okay. Anyway, but it's just that. So with sense, is that the same thing? And since we're born, that's like
it's the first sense.
That's what we must identify our mother with. How we know where to go for
safety and food and all of that stuff.
That's that first sense, because our eyes are typically not completely developed.
Yeah.
When I believe, right?
It takes a while for your eyesight, for an infant's eyesight to develop.
Their hearing is there, but it's not.
Yeah.
Or is it? I really don't. To be fair, I don't honestly know. I just knew that the smell was the big one.
Yeah. I know the brain develops rapidly in the first 6 weeks, 3 months, something like that. And by the time you're a year old, or a baby is a year old, all of the different senses have developed. And in theory, the child can identify sounds and sights and smells and flavors, but it's all like this rapid progression. The brain's got a lot of work to do in its first year.
For sure. Yeah. For sure. No question. But yeah, anyway.
So anyway, I thought that it was really interesting, the idea that you can really work with conditions that we have often talked about as being mental illnesses in this way, that you can use the sense of smell to help get around some of the emotional, mental static, if you will, and get through to that more primal part of yourself, and then clear it out, clear the problem areas and heal them. So I thought that was really fascinating.
It is fascinating.
And I think it's kind of, through the years, we've talked with a variety of herbalists who approach aromatherapy in different ways. And some of them have talked about how they don't really see a difference between aromatherapy and straight up herbalism, because it is aromatherapy to even brew a cup of herbal tea, like a
Right.
cup of lemon verbena tea, and just hold it and smell it. That's really an aromatherapy, which is true. It is.
Mm-hmm.
And that,
Yep.
so it's, I don't know.
Well, I think when you talk about that distinction, there's a feeling that you get with, say the tea.
Mm-hmm.
It's warm, it's hot, it's the process of going through it. You're in a different mind state. If it is, an herbal tea with a lot of essential oils, you're going to bring those in. It's because they're airborne or whatever, which is definitely an aromatherapy versus, setting up a diffuser and that, or a couple drops on a thing or whatever you're doing. It is the same, but it's different. It seems to me.
It is. I thought that after having read Matthew Wood's latest book, The Holistic Medicine and the Extracellular Matrix, and considered the idea that your sense of smell, you're breathing in these molecules, right? So the molecules are going in through your sinuses, and even in touching your sinuses, the chemicals can be absorbed into your, just like a topical going into your skin. So the molecules are going in, and they're going in through your sinuses, and therefore are actually really quite close to your brain. And therefore the blood circulation wise, it can be transmitted to your brain really rapidly and easily. And then you start thinking about those molecules doing their work on the matrix itself rather than on the cells. Yeah. And of course, affecting the cells and everything else. But that being able to make that shift and be so close to the brain and the processing center and the pituitary gland, you can make rapid change throughout the entire body and the entire system with just sniffing bottle of lavender oil, right, or rosemary oil. Right. And we see the effects. I mean, for a long time, we've said we don't know why it works and we don't fully understand. And, scientific side has tried to break it down into looking at constituents and specific molecular structures and chemicals. And when you think about what we know from, like what Erika was talking about, is that just using aromatherapy or essential oils as a method for shifting how you're viewing something or how your psyche is processing it. It's just, I'm having a hard time putting all this into some clear thinking, but I'm like bringing all these pieces together thinking this is just amazing how this works. And it works in a way that can be understood scientifically, particularly when you look at it from the cellular matrix perspective rather than just the cell perspective. It's as if the mystical nature of it becomes more of course, instead of, oh, so woo-woo, we don't understand. Well, no, actually, we do understand. It's really obvious, and it's really simple, and it's really natural,
Yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying. It's like people want to understand all of these things, whether it's, how herbs work or how aromatherapy works. And the easiest way for them to do that is to simplify them in their parts. In this case, you said your constituents. And then they can say, oh, well, it works because it has this and then it has this. Right. Right. So that's very easy for people to latch onto. It's, why. And we make pharmaceuticals because this is the one thing that does the painkiller. The rest we don't need, quote unquote, don't need, but this is what we need. I think, for aromatherapy and scents and all that stuff, it's that same idea. It's like, what is, what alcohol, what ketone, whatever it is that hits your thing. That's the thing now. And that's the point we're going to focus because I can understand that. Right. But what you did by saying what you did is like, well, you don't have to understand that. You just have to know that it works because of the entire body of it. And it's almost, I don't want to say belief, but there was like, when you were saying like, what you're saying is you got to believe it. And I don't know if I believe it because I know it works. And I know it works because of the whole, not because of the parts. Yeah. And for someone that wants to prove it. Right. That's when we have to break it. Then that's what I want to break it down to those parts. It's like, I I don't know that it works. I just know that it's true.
Yeah.
I don't know that, I don't, what I mean? I can't prove it. I just know it's true.
Yeah.
Kind of idea. And I think that's where it comes in. But, one of the things if you look at our book, there's just so many solutions and ideas there for how to use scents and stuff for us to do, more than just, oh, you need to pick me up. How about a little bit of lemon oil?
Right. Yeah.
Her book was much more, not a tome, that's wrong. Comprehensive?
It was more about real living, the whole span of real living.
Sure.
It was things.
Practical use.
Yeah. Everything from treating diaper rash to pimples to arthritis to, middle-age depression to, all of it. It was a nice wide span of the practical use of essential oils in daily life.
Right. I mean, essential oils have come into the pop culture zeitgeist in the last 10 years. There's been, you can go, there was a time where Costco had diffusers.
Oh, right.
I mean, you could go to these places, even Target had a diffuser.
They're everywhere.
They're everywhere. And then, there was a jump in essential oil sales because of a couple of the, companies that were out there that were selling a lot and had, reps and all that. And then they became more and more available on, if Target was selling it, they'd have their little line of that company would have their line of, I'm not going to get into the merits of quality or, production or any of that stuff. I'm just saying that once it hits those types of levels, then more and more people get into it and they experiment with it. Some will stay, some won't, like all things. But what Erika was basically saying is bring it into the next level of. So you bought a diffuser,
yeah,
and you played with some blends.
Yeah.
But did you know?
Yeah.
And almost like there's this whole healing energy thing from her vantage point with essential oils and hydrosols and scent.
Yeah.
That is just as powerful as taking a tincture.
Right. It is. And part of what makes it so powerful is that ability to heal our emotions. And when your emotions are in the right place, the body heals much better.
You spent the time and money on a new website. You made all the right choices, or seem to, and you still do not have the website traffic you need to make your website create money for you. MudPotDesign.com can help you get the traffic to your website to have it start making money for you. Get a free SEO audit at their website, mudpotdesign.com/free-SEO-audit.
We've all heard the stories of, the individual that was diagnosed with some really serious cancer and underwent all the treatments and all of that, and things weren't working. And then they finally just retreated and said, I'm done. I'm going to go spend out my last days in this retreat center and meditate or whatever, or laugh or whatever. And the cancer goes. And we don't know exactly why it goes, but we do know that people who go through cancer treatments and really work at finding the lighter side of life and the happy and the joy in life have a tendency to do better. Mm-hmm. They are more likely to recover entirely, go into remission. They are more likely to have lesser intensity of side effects from the treatments they're going through. They'll still have the nausea, but it's not as bad as the person who's really focused on how awful life is or who's really stuck in depression. So emotions have a strong impact on our healing, and it works at all levels. It works when you're healing from the common cold. You might go through a day of feeling sorry for yourself, but then if you just get a positive attitude about it, the rest of that common cold goes through more easily and your body recovers faster than, the opposite. Mm-hmm. So we know that having your emotions in the right space helps you. And we also know that if you're in a great mood and you hand your resume to someone for a potential job, like you walk in off the street and you want to make tacos and there's a help wanted sign. So you go in and you apply, mm-hmm. and you're in a great mood when you do it. You're far more likely to get a call back than if you are in a really bad mood and trying to put on maybe a decent smile, but you're just in a bad mood when you hand in your resume.
Right.
Your emotions make a huge impact on the results you get, no matter what you're looking at. what level of living you're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
So that's powerful, I think. I mean, that's part of what to me is just amazing about aromatherapy and the aromatherapy herbalist approach, where you're blending the two the way that, like Erika does, or Maria Noel Groves does that as well, I know. And I'm trying to remember, I know there are a few other herbalists we've spoken to through the years and done podcasts with that have also talked about that approach.
Yeah. The thing I always reminds me of going back to, Indian cooking or whatever, where one spice could have, 7 or 8 different flavors, aromas all around it because of the way what you do it. And I think with an herb, it's almost like this other idea, where there's so many things that it does or can be depending on how you prepare it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times some herbalists, and this is my opinion, of course, some herbalists just don't think about the essential oil part of it.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes the essential oils people don't think about the other side of it.
Yeah, that's one of the frustrating things.
And I think it's like it's an herb, and it's all its forms. It has so many different ways of working, and that we shouldn't necessarily tunnel vision one or the other. I'm not suggesting Erika has done that.
No.
I'm just saying
she's actually done the opposite. Yeah. She's trying to.
But it's just, I think there's this,
At one point, there was a herbalist who was putting out or talking about essential oils as if they were somehow not herbalism. And I don't want to say poo-pooing them, but pretty much saying, we don't do that. We don't do essential oils.
Yeah.
And that's, fine. But the thing I kept thinking about it was, well, how are you separating the herbs from the essential oils? They're the same thing. How are you not doing essential oils? So that was one of those things where I thought this is one of the silly parts of the way the American approach has been. Because when you look at like European approach, they don't try to separate them. It's all one big thing, or a lot of European. I think, if I remember, didn't the French way back when separate them? I can't remember.
Well, the perfumeries were really a big thing back then. They were the ones that really started pulling scents and how to use different scents to do things. And
right. Yeah, but they weren't a healing practice.
No.
There's like two, as far as I understood, there's 2 aromatherapy schools. There's the school that approaches it as a thing that's very separate from herbalism. It's its own thing.
Right.
And then there's the school that approaches it as it's all one big thing. Mm. And maybe we're going to focus on the scent aspect of the healing, but it's all still one big thing. And I can't remember the origins of either. Because, right now I just have not looked that up, and I should have before we did this podcast.
Oh, that's okay. Well, because but you never know where we're going to end up.
That's true.
We had a meandering conversation, and that's where we ended at this moment. Did you think you were going to bring up the French school? We're going to talk about perfumery at the end of this?
No, I did not. I did not.
So you're fine.
No. Yeah. But my own thinking is really all about holistic, as in whole, the whole thing. So you can't really separate a plant from its essential oils and think it's somehow separate. The essential oils are the plant, just as the leaf is the plant,
Is the cellulose that holds everything together.
Yeah, exactly. It's all,
It's all part and parcel.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I think if you're looking to really get into that knowledge base, to understand that book is it covers all the bases. I mean, it's a practical approach to using essential oils and scents for.
Yes, and I know that Erika's she's got a class that she's taught, and I believe it's still available in an online webinar style form. So you want to go over to her site, Sovereignty Herbs. And check it out. Which I'll have a link in the show notes. Yeah.
So we do have a question on the lines of essential oils and all that stuff.
Alrighty.
So this one's from Michaela. She says, "Hello, I've always wanted to make essential oils. So far, from what I've read, cold pressed is healthier and becoming more popular. I definitely prefer cooking with cold pressed oils myself. How does this apply to essential oils, though? Is there actually a way to make a pure essential oils with the cold press method without it being a diluted mix, i.e. the plant/herb matter being immersed and set or infused with a lot of carrier? Thank you so much for your time and articles of knowledge. Okay, Michaela, go for it, Candace.
That one sounds like a very complicated question. It's a really good one, partly because when we start talking about essential oils, there's the idea that they are somehow an oil. And while there are some oleic, if I remember correctly, if that's right, chemistry structures to some of the volatile oils, some of them are not. There are a lot of chemical structures there. The reality of it is that essential oils are volatile compounds that will completely evaporate. So if you put a drop of essential oil on a piece of tissue, let's say, and you wait a few minutes for the air to have its time to do its thing, or, maybe an hour, whatever, you will not see anything left over. There won't be any color or impression of oil on the tissue. Cold pressed oils are oleic compounds that are pressed out of the cellular structure of the plant matter they come from. So like olives get pressed and oil comes out. And if you put a drop of that oil on the tissue paper and let it sit for, a few hours, a few days, whatever, and you come back, while it may seem dry, it'll still be oil there. And there will be, at the very least, an oil stain that will, change.
Right.
So it's definitely a different chemical structure. When herbalists talk about making oils, herbal oils, most of the time they're talking about infusing plant matter into oils. So what that looks like is you take your lavender flowers, usually you're going to start with dried ones, and you're going to put them into your carrier oil, which in this case maybe would be an olive oil or an almond oil. And once you have the two blended together, you let them sit for a month, 2 months, whatever you're doing. And most of the time you don't use heat because you want the essential oils from the plants to also infuse or go into the olive oil or the carrier oil. So like in the case of lavender, you want all of the constituents that lavender will give up, including all of the volatile or essential oils, to infuse into your olive oil. And then later you strain out the plant material and you have a scented olive oil left.
Mm-hmm.
What it sounded like Michaela was looking at was the question of adding essential oils to cold pressed oils, or questioning whether you can make an essential oil by infusing an herb into oil.
I think she was doing the latter, not the former.
And there are ways to make essential oils that do that, but those are usually not creating. It's called an excuse me. There's a solvent extract. There's a bunch of ways to make essential oil. Distillation is the most, steam distillation or water distillation is the most common one for therapeutic grade essential oils. That's how you make hydrosols. That's how, Erika makes hydrosols and essential oils, is using a steam distillation method. And that's looks like an alchemical process. It's really cool, but it's got this big fancy style kettle, and there's some
cooling
coils. Exactly. Yeah, it's really very steampunky. It's really cool. But there are other ways. And when you start looking at some plants, they're much harder to extract the oils from. So they use other things like solvent extractions, which is similar to what I think she may have been asking about. And then, so what would happen is that you use the solvent, whether it's an oil or a wax or a chemical, to soak up the essential oils from the plant matter. Then you remove the plant matter, and then you use a secondary process to extract the essential oil from the solvent. So there's no actual oil or wax or chemical left, or there shouldn't be, in the final essential oil product that you've got. There's also expression is one of the other methods, which is really mechanical. Like, so for lemon and orange and other citruses, the way that they extract the essential oil is by using machines to not grind it up. It's usually more like a puncturing process, but like puncturing and squeezing and all of that sort of thing, macerating to some extent, just mechanically making a mess of it and then extracting the essential oil from that.
Right. And I mean, if you think about it that way too, lemon, lime, orange, there's so much oil in there. They have so much, it's easy to get a hold of.
Right. But the hard part is getting all those cells to open up and let go of it, because those cells want to hang on to it. That's why when you're holding an orange, you don't smell the essential oil, but as soon as you rip that peel, you get that smell.
Right.
The ripping of the peel is opening the cells. And so that's what the expression version is. There's other ones, like there is one called enfleurage, which is often used in like perfume industry. And that's where you, again, use a medium like an oil or a fat, and you put the plant material in it and then give it some time to extract and, and then continue on. So it's similar in many ways to solvent extraction. There's also, like for woods and resins, there's a process called destructive distillation. And that includes, it's like a burning process that's part of it and creates some charcoal and a bunch of other stuff. So there's all those other things, but, in a practical sense, distillation is the most likely, if you really want to get into making essential oils, distillation is going to be the way you'll probably go. If you're making an herbal infused oil or an oil infused with herbs, you can add essential oils to it. So let's say, for instance, you made your lavender essential oil and you're fairly happy with it, but you kind of want the scent to be stronger, or you want to get a little bit more of the essential oil therapeutic aspect in it. You could add some drops of essential oil to your lavender oil, and that'll make it more robust, at least in scent. The aromatherapy part will. So that would be a way to do that. I think it is highly unlikely for most people to try to use a press or a mechanical, even with like citrus. It would be really hard at home to press or use cold pressed methods to create an actual pure essential oil. So I don't know if that helps fully, but I think what we're talking about is two separate things, and that essential oils are only the volatile oils of the plant, and it's usually a rather complicated process to make them. Cold press oils and herbal infused oils are a separate thing, although frequently when I make like massage oils, for instance, I will begin with an herbal infused oil. So I might begin with an almond oil that I've infused lavender into or rosemary into. And I may, depending on what my final plan is for that oil, I may add a drop or two of lavender or rosemary, or, I might use like some geranium oil if I want the oil to be something that's, helping relax tensions, but also remind someone to enjoy life, to bring the lightness back into life. A drop of geranium oil might be nice. Or if someone's having a problem with depression, I might add a drop or two of lemon or orange or lemon verbena essential oils to the basic lavender rosemary massage oil that I've got, or the herbal infused oil.
Right.
So, you can formulate using a combination of the two pretty effectively.
All right.
So I hope that helps clear things up. Maybe I just made things a little more cloudy. I don't know.
Well, this is a complicated question. So.
It is a very complicated question. So good luck, Michaela.
All right.
So
with that,
put an herb on it.
The statements made about herbs and products on this podcast have not been evaluated by the United States Food and Drug Administration, FDA, and are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent disease. All information provided on this podcast or any affiliated websites is for informational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for advice from your physician or other healthcare professional. You should not use the information on this podcast and its affiliated websites for a diagnosis or treatment of any health problem. Always consult with a healthcare professional before starting any new vitamins, supplements, diet, or exercise program before taking any medication, or if you have or suspect you might have a health problem. Any testimonials questions, or case studies are based on individual results and do not constitute a guarantee that you will achieve the same results.